When you look at Gen Alpha and you look at Gen Z, I think mainly Gen Alpha, they've been born into this world with, the digital device.
Asking questions, and they even tend to go to the lens to challenge the lecturers, which is, of course, having a legal background, I think that
familiar with the smartphone, VR and AR, so they are not familiar with the books.
It's the skill to understand and learn from failure. And the skill to manual through tensions.
Actually, main thing is in this Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they are very lack of their self-esteem.
now there are new laws, for example, AI related laws, and then environmental law is now definitely most of the legal module.
It's not about making the kid an actress, which is what most people think I do. That is really not.
They might not really know. They can be quite privileged. They don't even get to see the unprivileged.
Hi everyone, my name is Dinara, and today as part of the Shine 50, I'm here with three wonderful young women to talk about Gen Alpha and basically what's required to understand the educational styles and the way they understand the world. So welcome everybody to today's chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before, going into each one of you, I'll just share a little bit about me, and just set the stage for all of us to discuss our different perspectives and positionalities about this topic. I am a lawyer by profession, training, but I also teach at the University of Peradeniya. I still don't teach Gen Alpha yet. But it's definitely a topic that I've been thinking about because they are going to enter into higher education spaces in the long run, in a couple of years, in fact. And what kind of challenges can that bring about in the way they study, understand the world, and engage in classrooms, etc. So let's just also dive into each one of your different backgrounds and see what you have to offer on this topic. Dinara, should I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dinara Punchiheva and I'm an actress. I'm also the founder of Punchi Actors, which is an initiative where I use drama as a tool to instill confidence building and self-expression in young children from different financial backgrounds.
That is super interesting because there's an inclusivity part to it, and also it's very immersive learning. And you also reach out to a range of, so you all already probably have Gen Alpha students.
Yes, and at the moment I actually teach orphanages. So it's pretty interesting because Gen Alpha, their mindsets are so different. And we'll come to this in that discussion. Do you want to go?
Yes.
And then we'll talk
exactly.
about it. Yeah.
Alosa, what about you?
So I'm Alosa Herat, and I'm also a lawyer by profession, but I'm currently working as the head of the law school at East of Metro campus. So in terms of my job role, we provide a LLB degree program. And so, with Gen Alphas, of course, we also don't have any Gen Alphas in this school, but we do deal with Gen Cs. So I think Gen Alphas will be a little different from them. So yeah, having to deal with Gen Cs is quite fun, I would say. I get to learn a lot from them, and it's challenging as well. So yeah, let's see how the discussion goes on.
Interesting. Moving away from a more higher education perspective, you have a very different background onto this topic.
Yes, actually, hi, my name is Manangi. So I'm the co-founder of Ocean Theory, which we produce board games, comics, and other interactive tools for the kids. Actually, my profession was I'm also a lecturer in psychology. Lecturer in psychology field. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we do have people from different disciplines. So it's going to be very interesting because we are looking at educating Gen Alpha, and our conversation might be very interdisciplinary because of our different, input on the topic. I'll just start with maybe Dinara because, just to go around again. So when you are in your work, you just said that you engage with orphanages. You'd also engage with Gen Alpha students already. Do you sense a difference in the way that they perceive the world, also engage with an educator?
Yes. So I think mainly, like when you look at Gen Alpha and you look at Gen Z, I think mainly Gen Alpha, they've been born into this world with, the digital device, with smartphones, with computers, with everything technology could bring. And I think that in itself brings a lot of positives, but it also brings a lot of negatives. And when I say negatives, I mean certain things like social skills and interaction with other people, because they are sort of in a little bit of a enclosed world. So for me, I taught at this international school straight after COVID. So the kids came after 2 years of being at home, and I think they lacked a lot of social interactive skills, and they didn't know how to behave with each other. I'm not talking about everyone, but most kids. So by these workshops that I did, these drama workshops and exercises, I could see all the shy kids, or the kids who didn't want to take part. Towards the end of the workshop, they were taking on the leadership roles, they were taking on the main characters. And for me as a teacher, that was very fulfilling, and it felt like a sense of accomplishment. Because as much as you need the skills to, be on the computer, do a lot of work, because the future is AI and the future is technology, you also need certain skills that are out of the screen. And I think by drama activities, by outdoor activities, I think that's what children get. Children get the skills from that. So I think it's that's an area that I am currently dealing with and exploring.
That's very, very interesting. One, because artistic skills and any form of art input into the way that you understand the world often makes a human being more fulfilled. Just because, like you said, there's the cultivation of empathy. So what you're doing is very impressive. And you did mention the pandemic, and I think
Yes.
maybe I will use this opportunity to ask Alosa about, now, some of the kids, some of the students, not so much kids, that we deal with, they are coming from a pandemic, post-pandemic world, into a post-pandemic world. So they have been maybe close to 3-4 years, have been seeing a global event unfold, and also having at the same time immediate access to a lot of information. I'm not talking about all the individuals we deal with, because the internet is very divided and everyone has different accessibility to information. But Gen Z, Gen Alpha have immediate access to information as well. Do you see in your work differences in the way that they engage in a classroom? Like Dinara said, there's social interaction being a little bit of a point of concern. Has that been the case for you as well, looking at a different demographic of students?
Yes, I think there's of course a difference in the way that they interact, because most of the students, I would say now, the Gen Alphas and Gen Zs, they are quite curious. So they are very knowledge seeking. At the same time, it's easy for them to find the knowledge, but they should be guided to a certain level to find that knowledge. I think that's where our role comes. So more like a mentor, rather than saying like, okay, this is it and this is what you should study. If we give them some creative space and give them the guidance, and they would enjoy that more. So in terms of interacting in the classrooms, I see most of them asking questions, and they even tend to go to the lens to challenge the lecturers, which is, of course, having a legal background, I think that boldness is something that's nice, that's good, but to a certain extent, whereas you do have the respect for the lecturers as well. But having some arguments in the class and then sharing their opinions, sometimes even contradicting what the lecturer might say. So it is interesting and it's very thought-provoking sometimes. So in terms of interactions, well, I see some positive signs in Gen Alphas and Gen Zs. And after COVID, especially, there was a little bit of transition period for most of the students, because during the COVID, we shifted to online methods. So during that time, even I myself faced a lot of challenges because they did not even answer when we are asking questions. They were, I think, not interested in answering, and they were also getting used to the new online method. So then it's quite challenging time for them as well. But since the COVID is over now the transition period is over, again, I think our classrooms are back to those interactive classrooms, which is quite nice. I think Gen Alpha classrooms are less boring than millennial classrooms.
That's very interesting. And it's great that you say that, because also a big part of pedagogy and education is ensuring that there is a two-way communication stream between the educator and the so-called educatee, right? Just to make sure that it's not a banking style model where you just continue to deposit information on someone, into someone, and with the idea of, taking it back at an exam. So I've read this book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, who talks about the importance of instilling that curiosity and the ability to challenge and have a conversation. So these three, you think that these are characteristics that are visible in these bodies?
Yeah. And those are very important characteristics. I think the curiosity and the tendency to question. So that is something I think our previous generations did not have. So then that's an important skill, and that's a very important quality I see in Gen Zs and Gen Alphas.
That's very interesting. And just to also add into it, the fact that they also have a global view because of the immediate access to information. They do tend to see globally relevant issues as near and dear as it can get. So, for example, be it climate change or be it poverty-related issues or war, they get to see it within, through their devices. And that brings me to you, Manika, basically because environmentalism is a huge topic today and very relevant topic as well. And in the work that you do, you engage with young people, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, hopefully also Gen Beta, to understand how they perceive the world and what kind of change they want to bring about. Because like you said, with curiosity come also, other asking of questions relate to also wanting to bring change, right? Do you have anything to add on that?
Actually, in Gen Alpha, they are born with the technology, AI, VR, AR, and smartphone and everything. So they are very familiar with the social media platforms, and they are see the world through the social media platform. Actually, so they are engaging with people through the social media platforms. Actually, in real world scenario, do they know how to deal with the people in physically? So what do you think about it? And other thing, like you said, in the Gen Alpha, they have to face in a very huge climate change and the resource deficiency in near future. So are they prepared for that? So in our education system, like we said, the Gen Alpha is, as Alosa said, they are very curious and tend to ask questions. Are our education system is applicable for the Gen Alpha generation? So how our education system need to change according to their requirements. They are very curious. They see the world. So they are trying to explore new things in different ways. So is our education system make a platform for them to explore, to do the trials and do the experience, to the capture the world that they see. So our education system, is it appropriate for the Gen Alpha requirements? So like you said, in the environment, so are these generation in the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are they really familiar with the environment? So that is a question. So what are their skills they need to develop to engage with the real world, the people, and how about their social empathy, the emotional resilience? So the kids in Gen Alpha. So actually in the education, the with this technology, the kids' education, kids' requirements are very personalized. So like we said, if they want to listen some music, they just Google it, YouTube or Amazon or anything. They have the media to access their favorite songs or films or anything. So they are very personalized. So our education system need to personalize for the Gen Alpha. So there is a huge discussion and there is a huge change for the Gen Alpha education system for their requirements.
That's a pressing question, right? Is the education system relevant anymore and capable of handling the curiosity, the care, and the empathy, and the way of understanding the world for Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and even as a millennial myself, I do think not. Just because of the banking style education systems that has continued and that continue to kind of create this dynamic of hierarchies in the classroom that you can't ask questions or you're just simply not able to express so much emotion. If you're frustrated, you're just just have to keep it together. That's the kind of education system I had to go through.
One more thing to add. So you said the Gen Alpha is very curious. So they always try to explore new things. So our classroom, is there any place to explore themselves? Is there any place to experiment themselves, what they need, what they want to become? So we don't have that facility right now, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And classrooms are also so inequitably placed, right? Then you deal with a lot of underprivileged students.
Yes.
Do you see the divide of the internet affecting the way they are educated or want to find new knowledge?
Yes. As much as a lot of a lot of students and a lot of children in Colombo have access to the phone, and their parents are educated, so they have access to computers and laptops and things like that. There's also this, I would say, a gap where I would say the lesser income households are a little scared to provide this to their children because you have this thing where it's, oh, the phone is bad for you, the computer is bad for you. I mean, I would say, no, I wouldn't say just the lesser income households. Sometimes, there are lots of people in other financial situations who also feel the same way. So there is a little bit of a gap. I think first it's accessibility, because I feel like if you get international schools, for example, they have a smart board, they have iPads, and they work accordingly. And then you get, private schools where it's a little less, and then government schools even lesser. So there is a gap with the way education is and the way education is accessible to different students. And I think that is changing slowly, but it is a bit of an unfair system where you have some children who are ahead because they have the accessibility to learn new things, to Google anything, to access AI and all of that, and some who just are scared or don't have the means or the push. So I think as educators, as caregivers, or even as teachers, by instilling certain, if you get, for example, if you get children who have more access to the internet and all of that, if you can sort of, put them in a little box and then just say, okay, now we're going to have like a PT class, or we're going to have a music class, or we're going to go outdoors. I feel like that would give them the skills in terms of, social interaction and all of that, which they don't get because they're always glued to their phones or their computers. And then if you go to the set of students on the other side who don't have this, and you provide them with these, with technology or with these accessible items, I feel like you could go the other way. But it's very difficult. This is just me talking. It's very difficult to do. And I think at the end of the day, it all also goes down to the state and government and leaders in high positions to hold this responsibility. But what can we do in our own personal way? Help somebody. I always say this in every interview. You can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And I think as a teacher, that is what we should do and create.
That's very, very important. And I think that a part of what you said also relates to socio-emotional learning, right? And just because you brought up the importance of socio-emotional learning and the idea of community, so not just education beyond yourself, I want to ask Alosa about the young lawyers that you're teaching. The idea of community moving beyond a pretty much individualistic scope of, I'm going to make it and then whatever the rest happens, having that connectivity to society and to community and a more socio-legal approach to understanding law and society are also merged together, and the actions that some of these students might end up being leaders of the country. How important do you think the skill of socio-emotional learning, especially for the demographic that you deal with?
So I totally agree with you. For those students, it's very important. Sometimes with the LLB, you might not become a lawyer. You might pursue a different career, maybe in sales marketing, but majority of them will definitely be becoming lawyers. And then especially if you look at the leaders of this country, most of them are lawyers. And when you become a leader, you most of the time address certain social concerns, right? So as educators, I think it's our responsibility that we make sure that our students have that sense, that empathy, and that feeling that they are responsible and that they should do something for the society. So that sense of responsibility is something that we should inculcate in the students. So with that, especially if I am to look at our program, and I think most of the LLB programs offer this, we have legal aids. So then our students get to see what real problems are there outside, because sometimes they might not really know. They can be quite privileged. They don't even get to see the unprivileged. So then having legal aid, especially not in Colombo, maybe if we can go to rural areas and organize legal aid clinics, so that would be lovely, because a lot of people out there cannot afford a lawyer, but they of course do have a lot of legal problems. And then again, it's a great experience for the students. And then again, for them to get the overall picture as to how this legal system of the country works. So we take them to prison visits, even to look at the parliament, because that's where the laws are all composed. So then we make sure that every year we have a parliament visit, and then again court visits. So then they really get to see like what they're supposed to do in future, right? So, because that's quite important, I guess. And even for me, when I graduated from the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, I felt that, well, I don't know how it really happens out there. Well, I have gone for few court cases, but not that I was very familiar with how it happens. So then we have mooting. So you know what mooting is, but the idea of mooting is basically you role play a case. You have the plaintiff, the defendant, and all that. So with all that, I think we of course give them that sense of responsibility that they should have towards the society. And then coming back to Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, I think they sort of lack it, especially maybe because of the COVID, and sometimes they tend not to socialize as much as millennials were and other generations were. So then because of these reasons, I think providing that education where we bridge that gap is very important.
No, that is definitely a point of concern, right? If you don't have realistic output, if you don't have an understanding of how things happen in the practical world, no matter how much you fare well in exams and in the kind of education system that we currently have, you may end up having students who, from these generations, who are struggling mentally, who are struggling with, keeping up their studies and also their personal lives, balancing both. And that's why we see a lot of mental health issues being also spoken about today. And, in your work, Manangi, because you also have a psychology background, how do you perceive socio-emotional learning, especially with this demographic of Gen Alpha students that will come into classrooms in the future?
Actually, so like we said, the general firm mostly engage with the social media platforms and everything. So they influenced by the social media influencers. So they try to become like them. So in my university as well. So in those days, actually they are not Gen Alpha, they are Gen Z. So when in their peer groups, when someone very close to the first class or second upper, say they are very stressed out, so they want to become like them, so they don't identify their capacity, right? So then what happened, they are very stressed out, they got ended up with the depression. So in my semester 3 students tried to attempt suicide because of the exam stress. Actually, when analyzing these students, actually this is not because of the exam, because their resilience is very low. They are very low resilience in the emotional, they are very resilient with the social. So those are things that happen in their childhood, because in our education system we only focus on the exam. You know, in our Sri Lankan education system, even in the school and the university, it is very exam based education system. Students are prepared to sit and write your answers at the end of the semester, at end of the term. So what happened, are we develop any skills in the students? So like I said, in Sri Lanka literacy rate, it is very very high, 93.6. So what is our skills? So 93.6 literacy rate mean very high literacy rate. So what about our that mean the entrepreneur skills, that mean the entrepreneurs, it is only 1.5 in Sri Lankan population. So what you need to become, what are the skills that you need to develop to become an entrepreneur, not an entrepreneur? So you need to develop some skills, that critical thinking, decision making, communication skills, leadership, cognitive skills, risk taking skills. So in our current education system, are we focusing on developing in these skills? No, right? So that is what happened when in Sri Lankan situation. So we need to develop these skills in children. So we need to actually we need to make a platform to interact students with the other students, like in schools. If we can learn something very interactive way, in something, if we can gamify the education, you know, today's world, we consider that Finland has the highest good quality education system. In their education system, they use many of board games, card games to teach the languages, the mathematics, STEM education. They learn, they teach through the board games and card games. So that means the board games and card games mean they are giving a platform to children to make failures, do errors, and fail and then learn. So what happened, those things? So it give the space to children to develop their skills. So when we are playing a board game or any other games, that means you have to interact with the others, you have to respect the others' ideas, you have to respect the others' empathy and emotion, their communication skills, negotiation skills. That how this skill can build. In our education system, we don't have. Then what happened at the university, students get stressed out, they can't do anything. When they enter into the corporate sector also, they are very stressed out, and most of the corporate sector in the employees are very stressed out, and I can't say the exact number, it is up to 30% in the corporate sector employees are very stressed out and end up with the depression. So the beginners, they are not develop their skills, right?
Yeah, no, that's very important. And I think a big part of it is also a good skill that you mentioned. And I think is something maybe we all can also share input on, is the skill to understand and learn from failure. And the skill to maneuver through tensions, at family settings, in your personal life, and also even your work life in the future, and to negotiate. So 3 skills that are essential to make sure an individual is able to kind of move through life's challenges and curveballs, right? In your work, Dinara, when you do teach students, how do you approach this idea of failure? and inculcating in them, oh, well, you failed, but you can try again?
So we do a lot of device theater and a lot of forum theater. Actually, more device theater than forum. Yes. So device theater is where the entire team gets together in creating the piece of work. So it's not like a script or like a pre-made script or like a book that we use. It's something that you create together. So you create the story, you create the script, you create the props, you create sometimes mostly the direction, acting, everything together, sometimes even sound. So it's really nice because it's the creative process of everyone doing it together. And so for example, if I say a sentence or like a word, teenagers, that's all I will throw, teenagers. And then the team comes up with a play about teenagers. So they direct, they write, they act, they do all of that. And it's really nice because in this process, there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of emotional learning, a lot of, answering and questions. And I think it helps with building resilience. Like Maneka said, that is one of the things most children lack, the resilience to go on. And I think, through my drama activities or my exercises, it's not about making the kid an actress, which is what most people think I do. That is really not. I think what I do is give them self-confidence, self-expression, building teamwork. And you do these activities and exercises and you can be a scientist. You can be somebody else. You don't have to really be in the arts, but it's life skills in a way. And I think this is also education that is out of the screen. This is not you looking at your computer and learning something. This is being out and, interacting and kind of developing your social skills.
Very impressive. And I want to also, ask a follow-up question. So arts is life, right? It gives you a glimpse into reality. And what is education without arts is a big question. For example, in the US, there have been lots of debate around this. Can education be mixed to arts? And I personally know individuals who study art and law and literature, drama, theater and law, because I am from a law background, and I'm sure Maneka will have enough and more evidence to share about, gamers who are also scientists, all sorts of different disciplines coming together, but then ending up in some creative space. For parents, and you yourself are also a parent.
A new parent.
What advice do you have to give in terms of instilling some of these skills? Because parents often also don't really, because of the way the pace of life we live in, the country that we live in that's going through economic recovery process, parents also don't have time to invest so much in the students' output into art. Art I mean not just drawing, but also drama, theater, ballet, dancing, singing. What would you what kind of advice do you have for Gen Alpha parents, especially?
So I think for parents, need to expose their kids to all sorts of different things. And you don't need money to expose your child for things because everything is online now, everything is free. And I think that is a big part. And also as a parent, I think you need to create a safe space for your child to explore, to make mistakes, and to kind of nurture their own talents and what they like to do. Because I think when we look at millennials, for example, our parents and maybe their parents also, parenting styles were completely different. It was, this is black, this is white, that is red. Whereas now, and you can have different colors. You can, you have the structure, but then you also have your free will to sort of explore other areas. So I think that's, as a parent, I think that's really important. And also I think the time that you give your child, because I think nowadays even parents, everything is on your phone. Even I look at my emails and stuff on my phone. So, it's about making a conscious effort to live by example, because if you pick up your phone, your child will also pick up a phone. But if you pick up a book, which is hard to do, they will also pick up a book, because they're obviously going to look at you, especially a small child. I'm talking about a small child, because as you grow older, the world is going to take you to your phones and to your screens. This is the future and you can't stop that. But it's about reaching that correct balance and achieving that correct balance where you have technology, but you also have your social skills and you have your ability to interact with others. So it's a balance that needs to be reached as parents also, and for children.
And the point that you raised about exposing your children to challenges and risks, right? So parents do tend to be quite protective. You dealing with also in administrative capacity with a large demographic, and also maybe parents. What is your experience of and also advice to parents if they're seeking to send their child to when it comes to tertiary education, that's like far ahead, and almost at that point parents would tend to like back off a little bit, but still we do see parents reluctant to kind of let their child, and that could be a result of parenting style, particularly because of the, millennial, or our parents before us. There's always this like fear of, that something could happen, also because of them living through turmoil in different periods of their life in this country. What advice do you have in terms of allowing your child to take risks?
So I think we see a clear generation gap. So definitely the parents can be baby boomers, right? Baby boomers or millennials, and then the kids will be Gen Zs and Gen Alpha. So then they have that gap, and then their parenting style, I think, should be adapted accordingly, because one thing that parents should be updated as well. We'll say it's technology, especially, maybe parents did not know how to use laptops, computers, and phones before, but now they have got used to it. But then again, your kid is far away, like they know so much to do with the phones. But at least to make sure that they do the right things with the phone, the parents also have to be very conscious about it, and they should update themselves rather than looking at it in a very negative way about all the technological development. I think parents can look at it in a positive way and adapt and update themselves. So then again, I see, because of this gap, I feel sometimes the parents tend to limit the potentials of their kids. So they will say there are some parents who are very protective of their daughters, but not maybe the sons. So that mindset, that very brown Sri Lankan Asian mindset where the girl should be protected, sometimes can lead for the girl to be not going after the opportunities that she might be having. For example, we'll say there is a good chamber where the work runs up until 10, 11, 12.
So any
right?
For any non-law groups, there will be like a lawyer's office.
Yeah, lawyer's office is a chamber. So in a lawyer's office of such nature, which is a good one, maybe the family, the father and the mother might say, here, you don't go to that office. You find some other job where you can, finish the work within the daytime and come back home safe. But that affect that particular lady, the girl, right? So then sometimes I see that most of the time parents' behavior, even though it might be out of love and the care, it can definitely affect the growth of especially young women, I would say that. And since I'm dealing with quite a lot of parents, I do get to experience a lot of progressive parents as well, who tend to, sometimes praise the new cool stuff we do. And at the same time, there are some parents who are even very concerned about the mental health of their kids. And there are certain incidents where it's too much, where, these kids sometimes us being millennials, we are little used to, be more tough. And some people, some students come and say like, ma'am, I am very stressed and I'm depressed. So I'm like, why you are depressed? Sometimes they say maybe because there's this exercise that they can't do. And for us, it's like we kind of judge and we are like, it's a very simple exercise. But I think we should give up on that mentality. I mean, maybe for her it's difficult, and maybe for her it's a tough time, maybe for her it's stressful. So what I always tell to this staff and try my best to do is to try my best to get into their shoes rather than judging them and saying that like, I was this strong. I mean, for me, when I was an undergraduate, I did 2 degrees together and I did a job in the weekend as a lecturer. So it was like, for me, I can say like, why, if I can do that, why can't you? But no, like everybody is different. So we have to understand that, and we should not be expecting the same from everybody. And that's very important for all the educators. And we should enjoy those differences as well. But if they need some extra emotional support, I think as lecturers, educators, we should be there for them. And we should make sure that learning is something interesting for them, and then we don't make their life miserable. So in terms of the student satisfaction also, I care a lot about it, because at the end of the day, true that they should learn and they should develop their skills, but they should also be happy and they should also be good citizens. So we are, making a kid or a future young man or a woman with all those important qualities and skills in there. So I think we have a very important role, and it's very crucial that we think about these things.
I like how you said you want them to be happy. And I think that's very rare to often hear from some educators today. Just the idea of like, you want to be successful, but maybe not so much happiness, because you have to, sacrifice a little bit of happiness to be the successful person, strong-willed, or, have this persona. And I think that's encouraged also at home then. Parents would say, don't show so much emotion, just funnel through, what is stress. So something I always used to have conversations with my own parents was the idea of some of these words that we've learned on the internet, like stress, depression, very important and serious topics, that are often just thrown out sometimes, for words' sake, but at the same time have so many connotations for so many people who are struggling mentally. For you, in your work, you do focus a lot on interactive skills, right? And interacting with students directly through gaming and different visual tools. For parents who are skeptical of, some of the changes that requires to educate Gen Alpha, what kind of advice would you have?
Actually, parents need to give some time for the child. So as an example, so when my nephew, he was at that time he was 3.5 years old. Okay, so he just took a green color crayon and just paint it on all over the A4 sheet. So when my mother and his grandmother, so my mother asked, son, Puta, what are you doing? So he said, I am greening. So he said, I'm greening. So my mother said, okay. So at the end, what he did was he shaded all of the green colors. Actually, the paper was full of green with green shades. So after that, his coloring, he said, Nanda, I was there, Nanda, I learned green. So we need to explore, we need to give some time. If you are said, so I'm greening, so what are you doing? What is the greening? So we don't have to ask the questions. We have to give the time what he is exploring, what he is doing. So at the end of the day, he learns that the shade of greens. So that is very, very great thing for his age. So as a parent, we need to give some time to the children to learn their values, to learn their capacity. So actually main thing is in this Gen Alpha and Gen Z, they are very lack of their self-esteem. So because what the one is, actually they are interacting with the social media, social platforms. They doesn't know where he belongs. So he doesn't know his culture and everything. So he needs to learn his culture and everything to build up his self-esteem. So the first thing. So parent need to educate him. So what are you? Where are you from? And everything. So, and also parent need to give some time to explore, and that means the trial and errors. So when you are riding a bicycle, to learn how to ride a bicycle, so what we do? Are we showing some videos? Are we reading a book how to ride a bicycle? No, we are giving some space to practice him. We are giving some helmet, knee guards or supporting wheels to practice. So we need to give some opportunity. We need to that time for the child to explore the world, to learn something new. So likewise, the parent need to be educated, and also parent need to understand what his child need and his capacity also. So the main thing, to give a safe environment, to provide a safe environment that child can explore, child can experiment, do trials, do make some errors, make some failures. At the end, he will win it. So the main thing is that, I think.
So the child is then also the educator.
Yeah.
Or the Gen Alpha, Gen Z, whoever that comes into a classroom.
Because they are very curious and they are very risk-taking guys. So in our education system and in our parenting style, we are trying to get in some to frame, and we are making some boundaries on him. So that is not go with this Gen Alpha and Gen Z, I think.
And I think they also demand for better, right? Better treatment, and maybe in a way kind of freedom to...
Yes, because they see the world through the social media platforms. So they see the world, how it goes. So they try to explore the things, right?
Right. Okay. So one of the things that you mentioned and I thought was very interesting is also this idea of framing, like not putting someone in a box. And that also means then allowing the Gen Alpha kid or the Gen Z kid or, even a millennial or anybody for that matter to be able to voice and have kind of their own perception, thinking patterns and so on. These questions for all three of you, and anyone's free to answer first. In your view, how long would it take for Sri Lanka to reach that kind of setup, at least in pockets? Are we ready as parents in our own individual lives to allow someone to have that agency? Because that also means you have to unlearn a lot of your power hierarchy that you have with the student, right? In your respective backgrounds, what do you think about that?
I think education is changing. I see it a lot in like my workplace and certain other educators that I speak to. I think it is changing. But how far and how long, I'm not sure.
Changing, and do you think it's changing in a consistent pace, in the sense that in your workplace, in schools specifically, are educators more aware of the different learning patterns of?
I think a little bit now, because there's accessibility and there's awareness with social media. There's a lot of awareness to mental health. There's a lot of awareness to the different types of learning and the different types of mentalities in students. And I think that in itself is good for children, because slowly but surely things are changing. But I'm not saying everywhere, it really depends on the school, it depends on the area, and it depends on your teacher.
In many ways, then back to what you said, we need to also be thinking of our individual responsibility. Helping someone means someone helping somebody, and many people helping each other. Alosa, for you, basically, then an extension of that question would be, how do you perceive legal education in this space for Gen Alpha?
Yes. For Gen Alpha, the legal education, I think in general, when it comes to the legislation process of Sri Lanka, we do see a considerable delay, right? So then most of the time the legislations get amended super slow, right? If you look at the fines for certain offenses, very recently only certain crucial offenses fines were changed. So with that, I think the legislations also have to really change fast, especially in this era.
Policies as well for
Policies,
education.
of course, definitely. So I think you can definitely add to that. So the policies need to change, and together with that, the legal landscape should be changing. And then with that, of course, the legal education should hand in hand with those changes and cater to the Gen Alphas. I don't think that they will be happy to enjoy or like live in a legal system where the laws are archaic, like the laws are so old, and then like they will rebel for, like, if the education system, the legal education has not changed for the modern world, they will be the people to
So
rebel.
no more Roman law from eons ago being taught.
Yes, and if you, since I have been, I graduated from a state uni, and now I'm in a private institution. What I see a bit of a difference in terms of the changes in the module. So now what we offer are very new laws, actually. So no more Roman law, like you correctly said. Maybe, they have to be familiar with certain Latin terms, but no more Roman law, right? And I think we both agree that it's no more needed. And now there are new laws, for example, AI related laws, and then environmental law is now definitely in most of the legal modules. So I think Gen Alphas are getting groomed to the new world, and then the legal education, of course, is not there yet. I mean, in terms of the Sri Lankan legal education, we have a long way to go, but I think maybe slowly, but we are getting there.
I agree. And I think it's also needed, because otherwise it just simply wouldn't match up to the pace of generational change. For the last question, Manika, then, is with regard to, the future that's ahead of us. You do work with a lot of Gen Z, Gen Alpha audiences, and you have a very interesting input into how they perceive learning. Do you think the landscape will change drastically into the future, or do you have any new tools in mind?
Actually, we have to change the learning method. That means delivery method, because they are very familiar with the smartphone, VR and AR, so they are not familiar with the books, right? So we have to diversify the education. We have to diversify the education methods as well. How we are going to deliver the education, how we are going to deliver the facts, very engaging, very interactive way for the this Gen Alpha and Gen Z. So diversifying education must incorporate into this our normal education system. I think that must be done very in near future, because it is very essential that diversifying the education.
Thank you, Manika, and thank you, Alosa, as well as Dinara. I think out of the discussion, we've understood that it's important to have skills for Gen Alpha, despite whatever generation you're from, skills to have social empathy and to be able to connect with people, and also to take failure. From every one of your conversations, that was something that came up. And also the last but not least, being able to take risks and to interact in educational spaces for both educators as well as the students, the so-called students. So maybe a role reversal also is a reality in Gen Alpha classrooms. So thank you very much for this conversation. I learned a lot, and it was really good to interact on this topic.